Okay.
Perfect. All right. Well, everyone, welcome to the 13th International Primatology Lecture on Past, Present, and Future Perspectives of the Field, which is brought to you by the Center for International Collaboration and Advanced Studies in Primatology, or CICASP, at Kyoto University. I'm Susumu Tomiya, and I'm one of the hosts of today's lecture. In this lecture series, we invite distinguished primatologists from across the globe to tell us the stories of their scientific careers, which we hope will catalyze conversations about the historical development of the field of primatology and where it should be headed next. As usual, today's lecture will be archived on the YouTube channel. So if you search for CICASP on YouTube, you will find it. And please feel free to share the link of the recording of today's lecture with your friends and colleagues. There will be Q&A after the lecture. So if you are a Zoom webinar attendee, please use the Q&A panel to ask your questions. And you can do that at any point. You don't necessarily have to wait until the end of the lecture. If you are a panelist and have a question or comment, I will ask you to turn on your camera and microphone, and you can directly interact with the speaker. And finally, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can use the chat board to add your questions and comments. All right, so I would like to ask the founder of this lecture series, Dr. Mike Huffman, to introduce today's speaker, Professor Xijun Ni of the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology.
Thanks, Susumu. It's a very great pleasure to be able to host Professor Ni Xijun today. Our friendship goes back almost 20 years now. He came to Japan and gave a lecture in a series of talks that were hosted by the Primate Research Institute. And I've been fortunate to be able to continue our friendship. Every year we exchange greeting cards, and I always look for Xijuns to arrive. It tells me that the new year is finally here. So I really appreciate him keeping in touch and also keeping us in touch with all the very interesting work that he's done over the years. I always try and keep an eye out for things that he publishes, although it's a field a bit separate from mine. I'm always fascinated with the great diversity of work that Xijun does and the findings and their relevance to primatology. It's really a fascinating area, and he's one of the leaders in that area. I'm really happy again that he can come and join us. When I was looking at the poster, thinking about the poster this morning when I woke up in anticipation of today's talk, I remembered the scene of him standing out in this very desolate area with no plant life, no apparent other life at all, but such rich history of our evolutionary past. And the thought came to me that if humans ever go to Mars and are tasked with looking for life, then we need people like Xijun who can find past life from seemingly nothing at all. I think we'd be in good hands if we had paleontologists on Mars looking for life in that form. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Xijun, and I hope you all enjoyed the talk. It's all yours, Xijun.
Thank you for your introduction. And so I just start to share my screen. Here. Okay.
Okay, looks good.
The pointer. I should have a pointer somewhere, right? No, I just use my mouse as a pointer.
We can see your cursor there. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, dear friends and colleagues, it's my great honor to be invited to introduce my research work in the International Primatology Lecture Series. And the title for my presentation is From Archie Boy to Dragonman, My Research Experience in Tracing the Wonder Path of Human Evolution. Well, My name is Xijun Ni, and I graduated from Beijing Normal University. I got my PhD there in biology and ecology. And then I was a research, it's a postdoctoral research fellow at the American Museum of Natural History for quite a long time. And I was also a visiting scientist at the Museum of Senckenberg in Frankfurt and the Natural History Museum in Basel. Now I'm a research professor at the Institute. Oh, excuse me. At the Institute of Paleontology and Paleoanthropology, and also a professor in the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences. When we're talking about the path of human evolution, and people usually think it's like this: a monkey getting down from a tree and gradually stands up and becomes a man. It seems quite easy, but if we go back to the phylogenetic tree and go back to geological time, and we will see the path is very complicated and in very deep time. So here, and I'm going to share 4 stories from my research group, and all these 4 stories and related to the evolutionary path of human. So I will start from my first bucket of God on the origin of primates, and the story of Archie, the Archie Boy, and it's related to the rise of anthropoid. And then I'm going to give an introduction on the impact of global changes. And I will introduce from my fieldwork to some theory, and then eventually a story about the dragon man. So, and my first bucket of God, it's a long time ago, and more than 20 years, when I just got my PhD and became a researcher at the in paleontology, and I meet a lot of great colleagues and friends, including Niman Zhang and Jin Meng and Chuanqui Li, Yuanqing Wang and Yaoming Hu. They are all worldwide known paleontologists, and they did marvelous works in paleontology. And Niman Zhang and Jin Meng, and we had a chance to discuss on a lot of interesting things, and including cladistics and phylogenetic analysis. So we exchanged a lot of interesting ideas. And someday they suggested Professor Chuanqui Li. He's a leading primatologist and also a leading expert in mammalogy, and suggested him to work together, to ask me to join his work on primate research. So I'm really lucky, so I had the chance. So one day, Professor Li asked me to his office and show me a tiny fossil and say, oh, this is a fossil, you can publish a paper in Nature. So, by that time, to be honest, I have nothing idea about the evolution of primates. Well, I said, okay, so let me try. So that's the start of my research in primatology. So the fossil, this is the fossil, and the fossil skull from the scale, you can see is pretty tiny. This is 2 centimeters. Looks not so beautiful. It was discovered by Dr. Yaoming Hu more than 3 decades ago. And from our area, it's largely covered by vegetations and farmlands. And you see a lot of nodules here, and within these nodules, there are fossils. And we say it's fossiliferous. We went there many, many times, but only one primate skull was discovered. And this primate skull indeed is the oldest known primate skull. So here is Chris Beard, another paleontologist, world famous paleontologist. We went there, tried to search more fossils, not so lucky. And after preparation, and this is the 3D movie of the skull, we can see this tiny primate has very sharp teeth. And their morphology is probably the most primitive morphology in primates, in any primate. But it also have a lot of derived features of primate. It have short snout, convergent eyes, just like our humans will have convergent eyes, enlarged brain case. You see the brain case is kind of rounded and enlarged. So this tiny creature is the first known primate, and so a lot of derived feature of primates. And so we named this species as Teihardina asiatica, and we indeed published the paper in Nature. And so it becomes the first bucket of gold of my career in primatology and paleoanthropology. So in the paper, we not only publish the fossil, and we also find some interesting phenomena for these basal primate. The orbit of the primates can predict the size of the eyes, and the size of eyes is very important for predict their activity pattern. For previously known fossils like the Ormomes and the Sosonians, the Tetonians, they all have proportionally very large orbit, just like modern tarsiers. But our phylogenetic analysis also suggests Teihardina asiatica is kind of a tarsier-like primate, but it doesn't have a very large orbit. So if we use statistical analysis, we actually see Teihardina asiatica is falling within the range of diurnal primates. That means it probably probably was active during daytime. So we tell some interesting story about the origin and the evolution of primates. So and from this research, and we predict that all the primates originated more than 56 million years ago. Based on the stratigraphic, we know the place where the fossil was discovered has the age is more than 56 million years old. And we also, our phylogenetic analysis also suggests the crown group of primates, the living primates, the strepsirrhine and haplorhine, they got divergent since the beginning of their appearance. And we also found that the first primate probably looked quite like modern small body-sized primates. And it was probably insectivorous, arboreal, and diurnal. That means active during daytime. So if you can see these three colors, that means you have color vision. And in this world, within mammals, only anthropoid and some lemuriforms, they can see colors, can see these three colors. And most of other mammals cannot see that. So based on our research, we actually predict maybe the earliest primates already have the capability to see three colors. So this is the first bucket of gold for my career. And the second is another lucky story, and it's the Archie body. It's the Archie Boy. So this is called Archie Boy because this fossil was named as Archicebus achilles. It is the oldest known primate skeleton discovered from the earliest use in oil seal sediments in Songzhi County, Hubei province, in the central part of China. The skeleton was preserved on 2 slabs. The slabs, each one is about the size of my palm, very small. And so here is the locality, and again, it's within the farmlands, and you see the sediments of oil shale, and there's thousands or hundreds of fishes, and there are a few also bird fossil there. But for primate, that's the only one. We're really lucky to have the primate fossil there. And this fossil saw a lot of interesting features, including the postcranial features that suggest maybe present some anthropoid features. So, and when we're talking about the anthropoid, we're always thinking about from Africa. Indeed, from late Eocene and the whole Oligocene, there is a lot of discoveries, including these beautiful skulls and late Eocene and probably the earliest anthropoid in Africa. So all these discoveries are mainly by teams led by Dr. Ivan Simmons and Eric Seifert. So they discovered a lot of interesting fossils there. And but in recent years, people gradually realized there are some other fossils, and the Africa anthropoid probably have a deep root in Asia. So this is the Eosimias. The Eosimias was first discovered in Jiangsu province in China by Chris Beard. Now he is a distinguished professor in Kansas University. But by about 3 decades ago, he was a young boy, and he worked together with some Chinese colleagues. They did a lot of work and found a lot of Eosimian fossils there. And now more and more people agree that the Eosimias is one of the most basal anthropoid, and including some postcranial features. So here is my friend and colleague, Dr. Dan Jibo. He just tried to show us the 2 calcaneus, you see, really tiny, of Eosimias. They were discovered from Jiangsu provinces. So these postcranial features can show a lot of interesting feature for the origin of anthropoid. So here you see it's the squirrel monkey, and this is a Eosimias. Even not for an expert eye, and you can see they are quite similar. This is a tarsier-like calcaneus. They are very different. So on our specimen, on the other hand, they can show the whole skeleton, and certainly can show a lot of interesting features. So I invited Dan and Chris and Marian D'Agosto and many other colleagues to join our research, and we worked as a team. We all agree on this skeleton deserve to be studied by a state-of-the-art technology. So we went to Grenoble in France, to the European synchrotron radiation facility. We used the synchrotron radiation CT scanning technology to study the fossil. You know, the synchrotron X-ray beam, it's really bright. It's more than 1,000 billion times brighter than the regular hospital X-ray machines. So, and we go there, and so we did the analysis. So here's the fossil, and if we look at the fossil and under the reconstruction with the synchrotron X-ray CT scanning, and we see a totally different view within the matrix. And we got more than 400 gigabyte CT data, and we used more than 5 years to work out to reconstruct the whole skeleton. And so we can actually reconstruct a lot of anatomical details, including the crust, the skulls, and almost all the teeth. And for the postcrania, and we can actually isolate each bone and take all kinds of measurements. So we did a lot of statistical analysis. And so now we got a really detailed study in morphology of this specimen. So we decided to develop a data matrix to run a thorough phylogenetic analysis. So we developed a data matrix including 157 taxa and almost 2,000 characters. And so when I was developing the data matrix, I was a postdoctoral fellow in the States. So I had the chance to visit a lot of important museums and check thousands of specimens there. And so it's a very important period for my career. And but I really liked that. To stay in the museum, check all kinds of specimens, scoring taxa, and take measurements. So it's an unforgettable experience. So when the skeleton was got published, if we compare the data matrix by that time, we can definitely see our data matrix is the largest by that time. But I think it's still the largest now for the primate evolution. So our data matrix covers from lemurs, tarsiers, and anthropoids, and also the lemur-like adipiforms and the tarsier-like omomates. The adipiforms and the omomates, they all went extinct, fossil primates. So, and we're also including some taxa supposed to be close relatives of primates, like chasseroos, flying lemurs, and extinct group is called Paleasia adipiforms. So we're scoring a lot of characters for these taxa. And then we use parsimony analysis, and we got a tree. So this tree is very complicated, but with the shadow, and you can see all the major groups have their own position in this phylogenetic tree. Like this is the anthropoid and the tarsier and omomates, and the lemurs and the adipiforms, and then flying lemur, Paleasia adipiform, and the chasseroos. So let's just simplify this tree, and we get this model. And so here is the anthropoid, and the omomates is the tarsier-like primate went extinct, and together with tarsiers, they form a sister group, and all these two together is the sister group of anthropoid. And the Archicebus, the skeleton we named as Archicebus, Achilles, phylogenetically is here, very close to the joint point between tarsier-like primates and anthropoid. And it's interesting because this phylogenetic position is so close to the divergent time between these two groups. So it actually preserves a lot of characters shared by both groups, particularly for the common ancestor of these two groups. So, and we can, based on these very detailed morphological studies, we can actually make a very vivid reconstruction of Archicebus. And so I put it like this. It's a tiny primate. Probably the body weight probably is only 28 grams. The body length is 7 centimeters. And the tail is pretty long. It's 14 centimeters long. And it has small orbits and probably active during daytime, and the insectivores. And the postcrania also suggests it's quadrupedal and quite agile. So, and after the paper was published in Nature, and we got a huge coverage by the media, and many people call it Archie Boy, call this reconstruction as Archie Boy. That's like my second research story. The third I want to share is about the impact of global changes and from fieldwork to theory. We know the whole world is changing, from not only the paleo environment, but also the tectonics, the whole Earth, the planet is changing. So here is, by the time the dinosaurs just went extinct, we can see India subcontinent is here, and this is still far away from Eurasia continent. Actually, the Eurasia is still separate by a shallow sea. And by the time around 50 million years ago, and the India subcontinent get collapsed with Eurasia continent. And by the time around 34 million years ago, and the Tibetan plateau started to rise, although it's still quite low, but it started to rise. And so the whole Earth is changing. And of course, the paleo environment is also changing. During the whole Eocene, it's about 56 million years to 34 million years ago, the whole planet was covered by jungles. From Antarctic to Arctic, they're all like tropic regions, all covered by forest. You can even find a palm tree in Alaska. So there is no ice sheet in Antarctic. So the whole planet is called a greenhouse. So it's a heaven for primates. We know primates living in the trees, so they really enjoy the environment. It's a heaven for them. But then paleo environment and the paleoclimate research reveal, by the time around 34 million years ago, there is a dramatic climate and environment change. The temperature drop sharply. Here is the record. So under the the Antarctic area start to have ice sheet, and the global weather is become cooler and drier, and we will see a lot of open environment like this. Still trees, but also a lot of very open areas, particularly in high elevated areas. So this huge change in paleo environment and the climate push a lot of primate went extinct. So here's the data in North America. We can see during the whole Eocene, there are very diverse primates. But by the time around late Eocene and 37 million years ago, most of these primates went extinct. And only one lineage survived to around 20 million years. And all the primates went extinct until the time the first human arrived in North America. So for almost 30 million years in North America, they don't have primates. Well, on some other continents like Europe and North Africa and Asia, the situation is kind of different. The Europe is similar to North American. After the 34 million years, just getting into the Oligocene period, only one primate survived by the time. But before that time, we have 19 species. And in Asia, previously known in the Eocene time before 34 million years, we have 15 species. And after 34 million years ago, and only 5 were recorded. So, but if we compare the North Africa, and we see it seems before and after 34 million years, by that boundary, the diversity of primates didn't change. So this is an interesting phenomenon for me. And so we did a lot of field work during the past 20 years. We try to search from different time in different environment, try to search more fossils of primate. But you know, primates is always extremely rare. So we have to work really hard. We worked from Gobi Desert, and just like Dr. Mike Huffman said, there's some place really like in Mars. And this photo shows our work in Tibetan Plateau, very high elevation, more than 4,000 meters. It's really hard to work there. And sometimes we have very large teams, sometimes it's just a few people. So this is different areas. And we also work in the main area, like in the farmland someplace. And we found a very interesting place in Yunnan province, that's in southwest part of China. And it's basically it's just within the farmland. And so we have to negotiate with local farmers, allow us to collect matrix. And from the matrix, we do screen washing, and we screen wash the matrix, and we got the concentrates. And from the concentrates, we search fossils like this. So here you see the fossils. All the black, each black one is a piece of tiny fossil fragments. So actually here you can see on my desk, I have a lot of boxes here, and all these are just fossils. I collected in this way. So, and after more than 12 years of field work, screen washing more than 200 tons of matrix, washed and salt, and eventually we found 6 Oligocene primate new species. And some of these species are still very rare. Like this species, the figure B, is kind of a dipiform. It's a lemur-like primate. You know, within the 200 tons of matrix, we discovered only 2 teeth, still only 2 teeth. And this is a tarsier-like primate. We have 3 teeth. That's the only one we have. So we got to publish these in Science. So, and you know, to publish a paper in Nature or Science, you have to develop some theory to persuade the reviewer pay attention to your research. If you say, I just got some primate fossils, no, you won't go to that niche, to Nature or Science paper. You have to have some theory. So we try to develop our theory, and we realize it must be something different. So we put our figure in this bar chart. So we put it here, the 6 species. Now we got 11 species of primates. So it seems the situation in South Asia becomes similar to the situation in North Africa. And then we go further to compare our data. So here is the line, and is the using Oligocene boundary. This line represents 34 million years. On the left side of the screen, and we will see we sorted by body size of different species. These are within Eocene, and the green one is anthropoid fossils, and the red one is lemur-like. So we put all these together, and we see it seems we don't have some pattern. It's just randomly distributed. We know the body size actually can be a good index for predict ecological niches. You know, different body size of animals occupy different niches. But after the using Oligocene transition during 34 million years ago, and we see the pattern totally changed. So here is the situation in Africa and the Arabian, and we see most of these are anthropoid. And all the lemur-like once was large-bodied, now become small-bodied. And most of them, the ecological niches are occupied by anthropoid. And then the situation in Asia is totally different. We found previously anthropoid occupy the large-body ecological niches, but after the transition, lemur-like creatures, lemur-like primates occupy the large-bodied ecological niches, and the anthropod occupied small body size ecological niches. So we realized that the ecological change, the paleo-environment change during the using Oligocene transition, this dramatic environment change actually functioned as a filter for the evolution of primates. You know, after, let's say before the 34 million years ago, the evolutionary center of anthropoid is in Asia. But after 34 million years, the evolutionary center switched to Africa. And since then, all the crown group of monkeys and apes are mainly evolved in Africa. So actually, most of the anthropoid went extinct in Asia only in recent, about 20 million years ago, and then come back to Eurasia. So that's the theory we developed. And so we have to give a reason to interpret why there is such a phenomenon. And we noticed that, you know, because of the India subcontinent collapse with Eurasia, the Primatology retreat. Once it was a sea, now disappeared. And the Plato, the Tibetan Tibetan Plato start to uplift, and the South China Sea start to open. There is a lot of political debates about the South China Sea, but actually 34 million years ago, there is no South China Sea at all, and they just start to open by that time. And because of this dramatic tectonic and the paleo-environment change and the climate change, they got a huge impact on the evolution of primates. So this is the third story I want to share with you. The fourth one is about the dragon man. So, for a very long time, I keep a secret work, and I keep that for a very long time. I mainly developed the data matrix for many primates, but I know humans are also primates. So the anatomical feature is there. It's not so difficult for me to develop a morphological data matrix for the study the evolution of a human. So, but I don't have a chance to get human fossils. Human fossil is always extremely rare. So, but I collect the data. So I look at the human evolution. So this is a simplified phylogenetic tree of human lineage. We see actually human lineage is much more diverse than the pan lineage. The chimpanzee, they really just have 2 species. They even don't have fossils older than Pliocene. So, and for most of these belong to the human lineage, how to arrange these in a phylogenetic tree, that's keep as a secret in my heart. So, and a couple of years ago, I had a chance to study the very complete Harbin cranium. This is one of the most complete human skull ever found. I mean, the fossil human skull ever found, one of the most complete one. And so we had a chance to name this species as the Homo langi, as a new species. This name is derived from the Heilongjiang province. Heilongjiang means Black Dragon River. So that's it's named as, so it's langi means long in Chinese means dragon. So that's why it's called a dragon man. So we are really lucky to have got this fossil in the published site. So the fossil locality of this fossil is kind of uncertain. There is a very complicated story told by the former owner of this fossil. The fossil site is here and in my hometown in Heilongjiang province. And they're supposed to be discovered by this Dongjiang Bridge. And in that area, this is the Songhua River. There is a lot of underwater sand mines. So the local people collect sand mining in that area. This is the way the digger got sands. And actually in the sands, it's extremely fossiliferous. And each year we got really a lot of fossils looks like this. All these are mammoths and some deers and yak cows and a lot of other fossil fragments. Most of these fossils are late Pleistocene, no older than 40,000 years. But occasionally, if they dig deep enough, they also got middle Pleistocene fossils. So this probably was from that collection. But the local people, they don't want to tell such a simple story. They tell a very complicated story. So we don't know exactly where they dig this fossil out. But fortunately, so we assembled a large group to study this fossil, including Qiang Ji, Professor Qiang Ji, who persuaded the former owner of the Harbin cranium to donate the fossil to the Hebei University. So now is in a government collection. So he made a great contribution to that. So we invited Chris Stringer, the first leading anthropologist. He is also a developer and supporter of recent after of Africa theory. And so we work together here is in London, and we collect a lot of data and try to do more detailed studies. And fortunately, we have enough geochemical method to date the fossil and to locate the fossil site. So for example, here we use the non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analysis to study the element of the fossil, compare with that with the fossils collected from the known site in the area. And we also analyze the rare earth element of the fossils. And we also study the strontium of the fossil. So here you see the distribution of the strontium all around China. And we also drill a coal from a nearby area. And by all the comparisons, geochemical comparisons and analysis, we can actually locate the fossil site is indeed within the Harbin area. And it's also from the upper part of the upper Huangshan Formation. So the age of that sediment is within 138 to 309,000 years old. So we do our best. And we also use the uranium series method to date the fossil directly. And we also date some other fossils. And eventually we can say the fossil must be older than 146,000 years. Well, and we have collected enough data. And when we come back to look at the fossil, and we see a lot of interesting features. First of all, we will see there are a lot of primitive features like a very receding frontal and the long and the narrow brain case. But we also see a lot of interesting derived features. They shared with Homo sapiens, shared with our species, like the flat and the shallow cheekbone, and with shallow hollow region is called canine fossa. And here it's a feature shared by all the Homo sapiens. And also there are some features in the air region, and all these features show it's a mosaic combination of Homo sapiens and some archaic human fossils. And we compared with a lot of fossils, including the African one, the European one, and there's another Africa, supposedly the oldest known Homo sapiens from North America is called a gerbil earhound. Is more than 300,000 years old. And all these are from Asia. They also share many interesting similarities. When we're talking about the human evolution, and there are two major hypotheses or two models. One is called recent African origin of modern human population, Eurasian populations. Another is called multi-regional evolution. And for many fossils previously discovered in China and in Asia, people usually use the multi-regional evolutionary model to interpret that. So if we use the similar model to do that, that will be, since around 2 million years ago, when the first Homo erectus come out from Africa and gradually change and all the way to modern humans. This is a gradual change. So, well, it sounds kind of reasonable model, but if we have to including all these fossils within one species, that will be Homo sapiens. But we definitely see a lot of difference between different fossils. So we try to use the method phylogenetic analysis. That's the method we're familiar. So let come back to my secret work on the data matrix. We actually have quite a large data matrix. And this time we put that data matrix in the web-based Morpho Bank. So this is a project. Actually, everybody can come to go there and to check all our scoring. And we all the features have a figure to show how the feature was defined and how it was scored there. And so we also use the supercomputer, after many years in IVPP, I had a chance to develop probably the largest supercomputing system specifically designed for phylogenetic analysis in paleontology. And we run a lot of samplings, more than 3,000 billion times of resampling. And we got a phylogenetic tree like this. This is based is a parsimony constraint, and we use it's called a tape dating Bayesian analysis. So we can get all the clays have the data, and so we have a very complete phylogenetic tree for all the major group of Homo. Well, it looks still quite complicated, and we try to make it simple. And we'll see all the Homo sapiens, they belong to one phylogenetic monophyletic group. And all the Neanderthals belong to another monophyletic group. The dragonman and some other Asian fossils, they belong to another monophyletic group. Interestingly, this monophyletic group is a part of the sister group of Homo sapiens. So now if we look back, so the simplified relationship looks like this. So now if we look back at the morphology of many Asian Middle Pleistocene fossils, they have primitive features. They also have supposed to be derived Homo sapien features. That's just because they share a common ancestor. For many years, Homo neanderthals was thought as the sister group of Homo sapiens, but our analysis actually revealed in Asia, we have a sister group is represented by dragonman and Daliman and many other fossils. Some other fossils like Heidelbergensis, like Homo erectus from Europe and from Homo erectus from Asia and Africa, they belong to the more basal part of the evolutionary tree. And once we got this phylogenetic tree with well-dated internodes, so we can run biogeographic model test. We test 18 biogeographic models. And so we can predict the common ancestor of dragonman and Homo sapiens dispersed actually from Africa to Eurasia. It's around 950,000 years ago. And the common ancestor of Homo sapiens and the Neanderthal, and actually is much older. It's around 1 million years old. This is actually older than Provier's prediction. The Homo sapiens dispersed from Africa to Eurasia is around 490,000 years old. And so when we predict the dispersal directions, previously we just got one direction. It's always after Africa, again and again. But if we use the statistic model and predict the possibility how the old species, the Homo species and the populations got dispersed, so we actually see, multi-dispersals, multi-directional dispersals. But it's interesting to see that there are more populational species get out of Africa, dispersed to either Europe or Asia. Then the populations get into Africa. But if we see in Asia, the situation is reversed. Asia receive more dispersals from other continents, but they give fewer dispersal to other continents. So we say for evolution, for Homo evolution, Africa is a source, but Asia is a sink. So, and this is a new model for interpret the phylogenetic tree of Homo evolution. And of course, we try to publish our very interesting discovery in in Nature, and so we submit our manuscript to Nature. But unfortunately, we have very hard disagree with the reviewers. The reviewer want us to release our CT data of the skull, and well, the museum, they doesn't want to release the CT data at this moment. But indeed, the CT data is not a part of our research. You know, and once you got the CT data, you can always print it out. You know, of course, the museum doesn't want to do that. And then the reviewer also requests us to give up the phylogenetic analysis. Well, that's the major part. We don't want to do that, because we think the phylogenetic analysis is more powerful and is reasonable to establish a phylogenetic tree. You know, for many paleoanthropologists, they like the way to draw the trees, the artist way to draw the phylogenetic tree. But our analysis, we think, is better to have models, to test the models. So we withdraw our submission. And then the Journal of Innovation, they said, well, you can submit it to our journal, and we promise to process the submission as fast as possible. And so we actually split our research into 3 papers. One is on the fossil itself, and the second is geochemical analysis, and the third is the systematic biology of the fossil. So we got a 3 paper published, and once after the paper was published, our co-author and the senior co-author of our project, Dr. Chris Stringer, said, fantastic media interest, the most I have known. So it's a successful, interesting story. So that's the one I want to share with you. Well, that's the 4th story I just want to share with you. And here, so I can give a summary and maybe some suggestions. You know, the first is the bucket of God. You know, the first bucket of my first bucket of God. It's very important for me to set up my career. People always need other people's help. So my suggestion is to be kind to everybody. Try to help other people, and then other people will help you. So the second is about the Archicebus, the Archie Boy. You know, once you have a good opportunity, if you got a second chance, do not do it better. You actually do it best. You know, you got a second chance, you don't want to miss it, so do it best. So the third, you know, you may not always be lucky. You know, hard work is still necessary. So focus on your work, stand on hard work, hard ground, and look up in the starry sky. I mean, that will have a broader view. You know, you have solid data and you need to develop some theory. So the broad view will bring to the front. So my fourth suggestion is also from my experience. You don't have to let everybody agree with you, but it's always important to present solid data, use most advanced methods, and stick to your own opinion. Okay, so that's all the things I want to share with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your wonderful talk, Dr. Ni. So now we have time for Q&A. And once again, I just want to remind our audience that if you are a Zoom webinar attendee, please use the Q&A panel to ask questions. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can use the chat board on YouTube. And if you are one of the many panelists, well, since we have many of you, please raise your hand and I can let you speak with your microphone on and your camera on. And I guess while everyone's thinking and gathering their thoughts, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. So the first one is a question from a paleontologist, and this is about your research on the early Oligocene fauna of Yunnan province, where you screen washed the sediment, 200 tons of sediment for 12 years, and it's really an incredible story of persistence, I think. And I'm just wondering how you know the right locality to devote your effort into at such a high level. Because when I go out and I screen wash maybe 200 kilograms of sediment, and if I don't find any mammalian teeth, I may say, okay, let's go somewhere else. So what's your secret?
Well, my secret is you have to get enough fund to support you, even you don't have primates. And also, if you look at the region, in that region, and we can predict there must be something. If we cannot find primates, that will be a very interesting story. But if we are lucky to find primates, that's another interesting story. So the most important part is just to persist, to endeavor to do more hard work. So and I'm kind of lucky to raise enough fund to do work in that region without to publish anything. So it's always hard to survive without the papers. So we actually use some other papers to support this project. And it's always important, if you find some bone fragments and keep screen washing, do it as much as possible. So, and for years we developed so-called industrial scale screen washing. So, and we trained a lot of very experienced people to sort for us. So that's not a good experience, but just so I can share with you.
I see. Great. Let's see. Questions from the audience?
Hey, Dr. Takai.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Professor Takai.
Nice to meet you
How are
again.
you? Yes, didn't see you for
I have one question. Where do you think the primate origin?
Where is
the primate origin place?
Oh, okay.
So you think that China is a place of the primate origin?
Well, I don't say it's from China. Well, of course, China is pretty large. There are many localities. Our current data show that the origin center for primates should be in Asia, somewhere in Asia. But I'm not sure it must be within China or maybe in some part of Central Asia, because during the late Paleocene, the primates must have originated before 56 million years. That within the Paleocene. During that time, the Central Asia part is still belong to coastal region. So there is a lot of forest there. And actually, we have some secret work there. Potentially, we can find some oldest primates in that region, but it haven't been published, and we don't have enough data to say that. So somewhere in Asia.
But as you know, in Northern Africa, there are some localities for producing the primitive primates. So how about such localities?
Very good points. That's from Morocco, and the species is called Atlassius atlassius. Well, unfortunately, they have very few fossils there. But if we go back to see, and by the late Paleocene, the Morocco is also part of the Tethys. So, and the Central Asia is also part of the coastal region of Tethys. So what I can say, they're probably from quite a similar area, but the Asian one maybe a little bit older, and they probably have more diverse environment. So that's the current data.
How do you think about the pagatorius from North America?
Well, it's not an interesting
primates?
question. Yeah, I think it's primates, but the question is how these diverse anthropoids get dispersed across the Atlantic Ocean. So I think we have to try to find the reasons for paleoclimates. Maybe some storm or something, they bring the whole family or a small group to that new continent. So, and by this time, I don't think any evidence can suggest the South American anthropoid could be really to originate from North American primates. There is no reason to believe that. They must be from Africa. So,
okay.
Yeah. Really, thank you for your question.
Okay. Any questions from our graduate students, perhaps? Okay, Naoto, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Naoto from a student of master student. I have a question. Homolongi seem to have wider nasal aperture. So is this feature is adaptation for cold environment, like Neanderthals?
Well, this is a very good question, and let me go back to my slides and show some models. It's better. Let me try to share my screen again. So here. Thank you for your question, and this is we'll go back to some fossils. Okay, and let's just go look at this. You mentioned we got a broad nose, right? So you think probably, yeah, it's correct. There is some hypothesis, some theory to say that they have broad nose probably because they are adaptive to cold weather. But if we look at some other fossils, now we know that this the Dali cranium, it also have broad nose, but this is from Shanxi province in central part of China. The paleo environment may not be so cold, and also like let's say the North Africa, they gerbil ear-horned. This is the oldest Homo sapiens. It also have broad nose. So for this broad nose feature at this moment, in my opinion, maybe just a feature for this lineage. They may not have really functional interpretation for cold weather. So, and actually, if you look at some oceanary now modern population, they have broader nose than us. And I'm actually from the very north part of China, from Heilongjiang, and you can actually see I have a narrow nose. So, and well, thank you for your question.
It is very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks. Any more questions or comments for Dr. Ni?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Professor Ni. I've been really looking forward to it. Thank you so much. This is not at all my area of study, so please forgive me if this is either very basic or very complex question. There is a book called Sapiens, written by Yuval Noah Harari, yes, and in it he discusses briefly what caused Homo sapiens, potential theories about Homo sapiens becoming the dominant Homo species and their competition with other Homo species. I was wondering if maybe you had some thoughts to add about maybe traits that caused Homo sapiens to be more evolutionarily successful than other Homo species. I would just be curious to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Thank you for your question. And this is a wonderful question, actually. And again, how to share my screen and come back to the phylogenetic tree. And I will say something from a paleontologist perspective. Okay, so share screen and okay. So we need another slide. This one. Okay, so here and you see is a phylogenetic tree and with fossil dates and also the predicted dates. And here is the Homo sapiens. That's by morphology and by phylogenetic analysis, they belong to a so-called monophyletic group. That means they all come from a common ancestor. And so the book, in the book, The Sapiens, they talking about how this clade replace all the other clades and become the only dominant Homo species in this world. But interestingly, if we look at the age of these, but for many time slices, horizontal time slices, there are many species coexist on this planet, including the dragonman. They coexist with Homo sapiens for thousands of years, including the Neanderthals. They coexist with dragonman and sapiens. And we also know the so-called Denisovans, right? Known only mainly from molecules. And indeed, there is some other lineage, actually some late lineage of erectus. They also survive. Then we have a time, if we have horizontal time slices, we actually see many lineages coexist. The question is, why only Homo sapiens survived? We actually have no idea about that. Although there is a lot of theory that Homo sapiens, they developed some technology or they have culture and some other things. And we now have evidence to show actually Neanderthals, they also have very complicated culture, and but they went extinct. We don't know whether it's because of the competition with Homo sapiens or some other reasons. We have to say it's kind of unfortunate. And of course, continuous research in paleontology will give more evidence. But I think that will be a long-lasting question for Homo sapiens, while there is only one species survived today. Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question along that same line?
Yes.
Time-wise, there were many species on the planet at the same time. What is the largest number of species that were sympatric at the same time? Do you have any idea?
The largest, I think, that will be. You mean how many species or area? You mean?
How many species in the same area, and how many areas with multiple species? Is there any idea currently how that was set out?
Well, if we look at the late Pleistocene, and we can count, we have Homo sapiens, and we have the Xijun the Florensiensis, Neanderthals, and the dragonman, and the Denisovans, and some Naledi, maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8 species at the same time at most.
All in the same place, in the same area, the same region.
Well, if we say this, when we say sympatric, that's because for Homo sapiens probably already dispersed 2-3 continents. But if we focus on, for example, in Asia, and we know some island species like Homo florensiensis, and at the same time we got a Homo luzonensis. And in the mainland, we have Denisovans, dragon man, and potentially also Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. That will be 4 species sympatric. And so, well, that's the thing. So quite some species together.
Yeah, it's always been a fascinating thing to think about. If you look at great apes, there are some places where multiple great ape species live in same areas, but you have examples like with the 2 pond species, they're separate. But you have the 1 pan species and all the subspecies. Separate but neighboring.
So that's why there is a lot of debate. Some people think that all the so-called species, they all belong to Homo sapiens. So they actually lump everything together. But if we look at their morphology, they are different. And in recent 10 or 20 years, the ancient DNA research, like Neanderthals, we already have the genome of Neanderthal. And if we compare that with Homo sapiens, although they interbreed somehow, but they quickly remove the interbreeds. That means they belong to different species. So that the interbreed actually is a interspecific interbreeds. So, they coexist for quite a long time.
Right.
So, very interesting question. Thank you.
The answer was more interesting.
Thank you.
All right. Well, so please give Professor Ni another round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
And this is probably a good place to stop the live streaming to you.